Welcome back. At the end of the last segment, I mentioned the idea that the role-playing idea with attitudes might relate to some of the aspects of development in Charlie Bartlett and the Thumbsucker. So I need to take us a step back to talk about what is development. Well, you might remember from your Gen Psych class, development's the systematic physical, cognitive, and social changes in the individual between conception and death. Birth to womb to tomb, that's what they say. In choosing movies, couldn't quite find ones that fit for some of the womb and earlier childhood stuff, though we do have a lot of examples for adolescent, adult, and later life development. So that said, we can think about some childhood issues and how it relates to adulthood as we think about attachment. The book talks about Harlow's baby monkey studies, or what I call the monkey mama studies. And what happens with attachment deprived children, and then when that extends out longer, I especially want you to focus on Erikson and Erikson's thought about basic trust and how that relates, as well as how it might affect the self-concept. Like I said, the book discusses this in the context of childhood, but I think that really can offer some insights into its implications for adulthood with Wendy's character in the movie Savages. Parenting styles also come into play, both in Thumbsucker and Charlie Bartlett. But given the length of the Thumbsucker worksheet already, I'm going to have you focus on it more with Charlie Bartlett. And our book talks about 3 different parenting styles and how they tend to affect the child's behavior. One consideration with Charlie Bartlett is, given the parenting styles being employed, does Charlie behave in a way that we would expect if we considered our scholarly knowledge and how the parenting is portrayed? In the bigger picture, Charlie Bartlett and Justin in Thumbsucker are also deep in the throes of adolescence, which is between childhood and adulthood, beginning with puberty. And so adolescence is characterized by a whole lot of physical issues, as we well know. And the brain, among other things, is charging up. We're sexually maturing. At the same time, though, there's cognitive development. In other words, we're beginning to reason differently, including reasoning about morality. So, like I said, Thumbsucker, Charlie Bartlett is going to include a lot of information helping you think and analyze portrayals of physical and cognitive development. But there's also a little bit of the idea of morality tucked into down to the bone. And I think it kind of helps us think a little bit more deeply about Kohlberg's theory of morality when we think about the character and down to the bone. So I look forward to reading your thoughts after you watch that movie. Later in life, we also have a number of different changes. It's not like we get through adolescence and everything magically slows down. There are a lot of misconceptions about what goes on later in life, but there are changes in sensory and cognitive abilities, as well as various factors related to health. The father's character in The Savages will help us think a lot about that and think about how it relates to our family and our friends that are in other stages. Finally, not exactly in chronological order, we can think about the bigger picture of adulthood, the different stages we might go through in adulthood, and the commitments that are characterized by it. In Thumbsucker and Savages in particular, we really see a lot of character development in this area with very different characters. So it can help us think about whether all of the material from our textbook is generalizable or how it applies when we have such different people. So some of the questions relate to, or some of the issues in the textbook relate to midlife crisis. And is it a crisis or is it a transition? And we think about whether we see this idea of crisis or transition depicted in the movies. The book also talks about how the role of chance events intersects in there, as well as Erikson's idea of intimacy versus generativity, and the relationship and the role of love and work in the adults' lives. Each of those I think you're going to see highlighted in various ways with the characters, and like I said, I'm asking you to think about that in the context of Thumbsucker and Savages. I'm also going to have you think about learning and personality, as well as some other concepts, which I'll explain in the next segments.